Why are you saying that having lectures online is a problem?
Exclusively.
So I should be understood to be saying that what we are doing in Ghana, we are doing it the wrong way. Because before you take a decision to provide studies online, there are specific requirements that will help facilitate teaching and learning. Some of those things include a proper strategy by the school that is offering the teaching, right? The lecturers understanding exactly what online teaching is about and how to deliver it in order to deliver quality. The framework for assessing students also recognizes that, and it's also part of the strategy to make sure that the right quality is delivered. The right tools being available to the school, the platform to be able to deliver that service, and then also the students themselves. The tools that are needed to go online. You cannot go online in a vacuum.
Okay.
The tools must be there. The infrastructure beyond the tools, having the tools, the infrastructure that will make that possible. So, for instance, data. Do you have reliable data connection? And are you within a particular space that allows you to pay attention? Where you are not within that space, is it possible to go back and retrieve the material and internalize it? Bernard, it is my respectful submission that while these things are available elsewhere, and the evidence will point to the fact that, well, it is great to have online teaching and learning and to deliver the best possible results. What we are doing in Ghana largely is a problem. And it is undermining the quality of teaching and learning that we are offering. Let me explain why. So recently, I went for a session to do a session in Tema. Then I went to buy cocoa. In the course of buying the cocoa, I noticed that there was a young lady who had an earpiece.
You are blowing somebody's cover because cocoa and Tema, they have a base there.
I know, right?
You are blowing somebody's cover.
She had an earpiece, so she was selling to us, getting the instructions, selling, and then also paying attention to what was happening.
It was multitasking.
Exactly. Now, in the process, she made a mistake as to what exactly some of the customers were ordering, who was ordering what, and what was supposed to be put inside.
Whether
So, for instance, my
milk,
cocoa,
sugar.
you don't have to put sugar inside. And then she ended up putting sugar in my cocoa.
Because she was listening to lectures.
Exactly. And then also not required to put milk in there. But at the milkman. Now, and if you look at the phone that she was using for the purposes of attending the lectures, you realize that if you want to engage properly in online teaching and learning, you don't use your handheld phone, which has so many cracks over it. The earpiece, which is not functioning properly, and you are on it. And she said she's doing economics
on a mobile phone.
Bernard,
while engaging in an economic activity.
Yeah, but practicals and
practicals. Bernard, you have to first of all understand the concepts that are being taught by the lecturer, right? And I engage her thereafter. That, so how are you able to do this? She tells me that, well, they do 1 full week online, and sometimes they do the face-to-face teaching, right? And she confirms that indeed it is difficult to actually appreciate what the lecturer is teaching, especially when you are dealing with graphs, you understand, and you are dealing with calculations, formula that you have to use to actually calculate and come to a particular conclusion. Now, elsewhere, there's a requirement that you need, for instance, a properly functional laptop, which will properly display the graphs that you want to actually teach the students. The teacher also has a deep understanding of how to deliver the course online in a way as to help the student to properly internalize what is being taught.
Okay.
And then also data availability makes it possible for the student to link up properly with the teacher, so that the teacher is not teaching in vacuum. Nobody's listening because the student cannot afford data. And then also, there is a certain awareness that you need to be within a certain confinement to be able to pay attention to what the teacher is teaching. So, for instance, the students were telling me that in many cases, you have some of the colleagues either sitting in a trotro or at a market somewhere, and then for some reason they do not understand online teaching and learning. So some will leave their microphones on. So for a whole 5 minutes or so, exactly, whatever the teacher is teaching is not getting to the students because for some reason someone has left the microphone on, and the transaction that she or he is doing in the market or in a trotro is disrupting lectures. And because the teacher himself lacks the awareness necessary to actually know that, oh, there's somebody interfering with the teaching, then he also goes on reading the slides to the students, trying to explain a concept without actually making sure, with the greatest respect, that the students internalize.
So for you, this is a question of quality. You don't think that students are getting value?
Not at all.
They are not following the courses. I have a different angle to this. I think that there's also a concern about increased use of screen time among our kids. There's a story that was written. Yeah. Was it in the Ghanaian Times or the Daily Graphic?
This is Daily Graphic on May 7,
give me the highlights of that.
So, time for national discourse on screen addiction impact on children.
Okay.
A development pediatrician, Dr. Yvonne Brew, has called for a national conversation on screen addiction to create awareness and educate the general public on its devastating impact on children. She said the situation was steadily becoming a silent epidemic which needed to be addressed to curb it from becoming a crisis. She said what started as parents providing electronic gadgets such as mobile phones and tablets for their children as a way of occupying them so the parents could have some peace and convenience is turning out to be a monster in children's development. Quote, we are losing our children not to war, not to hunger, but to screens, and we are doing it with our own hands. There is no longer a parenting issue. This is no longer a parenting issue. This is an emergency, she stated. Now, as part of the efforts, Dr. Brew is currently organizing training sessions for medical doctors and nurses to expose them to the reality of screen addictions among children. Screen addiction. Now, children's early exposure to electronic and digital screens distorts their development in speech and other behavioral actions. Experts have warned that too much exposure to screens for children under 5 years has dire consequences such as loss of speech, restlessness, eye contact avoidance, speaking with a foreign accent, and behavioral issues. Cases rising. Dr. Mrs. Brew, a pediatrician with the Greater Accra Regional Hospital in Rage, was speaking in an interview with Daily Graphic on screen addiction among children in the country. She said to diagnose what the issues were, doctors realized that all of such children were spending a lot of time with their phone or tablet. Quote, apart from speaking with a foreign accent, another striking thing is that such children cannot sit down in one place. Also, they are always very anxious. Further probes showed such children have been spending between 6 to 10 hours on the screen, she reviewed. A development pediatrician said the data available at her department indicated that there were over 200 children currently undergoing rehabilitation, revealing that the impact was more severe in children below 3 years, but the good news was that it was easier to treat at that level, and therefore Dr. Mrs. Brew advised parents to report to hospital with their children early if they found any unusual behavior as mentioned. Now there's need for policy. The development pediatrician appealed to the government for a policy on the screen use of children in preschools and preschool age. Quote, we want a policy that would help parents to know that they should not let their children watch cartoons either on television, phones or tablets, but rather the children should learn to play outside. Quote, we would want all children below 3 years not to have access to screen time at all, and that preschools should not use the screens to teach children. Additionally, she appealed to preschools and Sunday schools to stop using televisions and other screens as learning materials. She quoted the World Health Organization saying that children below 2 should not have access to the screen at all, and those who are 3 to 5 should have access to the screen for a maximum duration of an hour a day. So it goes on and on, but that's the crux of the matter.
More on this coming up shortly. So there are two angles to this. Sky says the quality of the education particularly at tertiary level, where you predominantly just do digital online classes, it's not fair. And to be fair, there's a text from Adabakawa agrees with Sky. It says the concern by Sky relation to online model of teaching and students in universities is a big problem. My wife, who was undertaking a program in one of the universities, had a physical contact with the lecturers less than 10 times in 4 years, majoring in economics and psychology. The painful thing is that she paid her fees in full and had to pay extra for the data she used for the years. This lazy and insensitive means should be looked at. So that's the point being raised, that contact time is reduced. People are just online and it's not immersive enough. But then there's also a concern about younger kids and screen time. So there are two. Of course, there's also a bridge there. There's all this concern about EdTech, where we even have a show called EdTech Monday. People are like, oh, we need to make sure that children have access to technology to aid learning. But there are concerns that this move towards EdTech could also be counterproductive, because then the way the social skills of the kids will be affected. In fact, somebody sent me research this morning suggesting that the level of suicide among teenagers in the UK was traceable by some research to exposure to screens. So let me just read that story for you before Kusu comes in with tech and social media trends. So here's the story. What does the research tell about phones and students' mental health and well-being? It says between 2010 and 2015, suicide rates among 10 to 14-year-old girls and boys increased by 167 and 92% respectively. Self-harm rates for teenage girls in the UK soared by 78%. Anxiety diagnosis for those aged 18 to 25 jumped by 92%. 40% of teenage girls who spend over 5 hours on social media a day have been diagnosed with clinical depression. And then it goes on to then warn about the way exposure to screens affects younger people.
Some parents do everything in their power to mitigate screen harms at home, but then their children go to school and they experience hours of screen time in the guise of educational technology, or EdTech. Whether that's in the form of iPads and Alexa voice assistants for nursery school children, learning systems like PowerSchool in primary school, or Google Classroom on secondary school devices, who has proven that this deluge of screen education is what's best for our children? No one has. If we step back and view this state of affairs through a compassionate lens, it's fairly understandable. Let's wave aside the fact that only 7% of UK edtech companies have conducted randomized controlled trials, and just 12% have used third-party certification. Let's put these pesky facts aside. At the beginning, these products seemed futuristically exciting. Well-intentioned schools spent fortunes buying and implementing the latest software and trained their teachers in how to use it. And some of the tools, like no more marking, have been helpful for teachers. But now we have better data on how tech is impacting pupils, so we must press pause and, in many cases, rewind. The Karolinska Institute in Sweden recently published research concluding that there's clear scientific evidence that tools impair rather than enhance learning. Sweden has taken note and been the first country to kick tech out of the classroom, reinvesting in books, paper, and pens. They had the courage to admit that EdTech was a failed experiment. Bill Gates himself said that devices have a lousy record in the classroom. Mark Zuckerberg went to a tech-free school in Boston. Steve Jobs didn't let his own children use iPads. UNESCO says moderation should be the key word relating to classroom tech use. The OECD found that most EdTech has not delivered the academic benefits once promised, and that students who use computers very frequently at school do a lot worse in most learning outcomes. Global test scores in maths, science, and reading are plummeting. I've personally spoken to teachers in British state schools who've acknowledged that classroom tech has hampered the progress of many of their pupils, and the huge boom in tutoring among private school children points to the fact that they're not learning well in school either. So why are we getting so overexcited about EdTech here in Britain? Why are we outsourcing executive function skills to a computer? Why are we allowing exam boards to take every subject online by 2030? All the emerging research generate a pulling up of the drawbridge rather than the open-armed embrace that we're seeing.
I
So this is an excerpt of a voice clip from a British group, Safe Screen Campaign, who believe that we have to hasten slowly. And you know that the UK have the target they've set for themselves that by 2030 all education will be on the screen. We also do an EdTech program here. But I think like the point you raised today about university education, for me, we should broaden it. And I feel like Dr. Brew's point in the graphic requires us to pause and think about how we are passing learning on. I do know that for universities like Legon, class sizes are so large that the physical contact does not even really exist. All right, so if you have a political science class of 800 students, if you put them at the M block, you can't even reach them. So I can understand why you can do screen time. But I feel like there needs to be a moderation where you can break the class into smaller groups for study, for maybe tutorials or something, which I'm not sure is happening. From the text you read, somebody said his partner did a 4-year course in economics and psychology, and in 4 years met the lecture only 10 times. That is crazy. And basically spent all the time behind a computer, allegedly learning economics. And that's a problem.
And Bernard,
that's a problem, right?
You see, if you don't have enough classroom space or lecture room space, what do? You cut your coat according to your size, ordinarily, right?
It's actually called cut your coat according to your cloth.
According
According to your cloth.
Very
Yes,
well.
please.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Now, what are these major universities, what are they doing? What we are seeing is that many of these universities are opening, outside campuses or allied, they call it allied campuses.
Satellite campuses. Yes.
In which case, instead of actually ensuring contact hours in the sense of lecture, student, meeting face to face, right, and delivering teaching and learning, they have resorted in many cases to the use of online platforms to deliver teaching and learning. While some other universities, so for instance, the private universities, who ideally would have absorbed some of the excess numbers and to teach them properly, hopefully, so that the students can actually get out with something meaningful. These students are getting recruited by the main universities, and then at the end of the day, they don't go into the classrooms. Majority of the times, they receive certificates that say that you attended university A, B, and C, when in fact, you have not been rigorously trained as a student. For instance, government is talking about setting up a new university somewhere in the Kintampo area, right? They have set up a university in the eastern region responsible for environment. Go and find out how many students are there. The big universities have absorbed these students. There's likes of Central, the likes of Methodist University, to a large extent, Gimpa, and many other universities are struggling because everybody now wants this certificate. But the teaching is happening online.
And what is wrong with that?
Bernard, we are not, you see, the kind of rigor you and I had when we had face-to-face teaching.
Yeah.
Professor Bob Watting taught you economics face-to-face, right?
With chalk.
With chalk, Gawuta Ganama. When he said this is the formula for calculating, what do you call it? Well, give me some economic term.
In different scales.
In different, you saw it feedy. But in this case, students don't even have data to actually even study.
So you are raising the quality of education problem. I want to develop the screen addiction angle, which Dr. Yvonne Brew, a developmental pediatrician, raised with a graphic, and thankfully she's on the line to provide further context to this. Doc, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Thank you. I feel guilty because yesterday I told my son that his revision for papers, he should do an online class with his teacher. So he was practicing computing with the teacher and they were solving problems online. Now, having read the story, I'm worried whether I'm even doing the right thing. So first of all, I want you to talk about the use of the word a silent epidemic. How serious is the situation of screen time addiction by children, and what age groups are we talking about?
Okay, good morning. So as a developmental pediatrician, I see children from birth to 18. Now, I've been doing this work for a very long time, and we keep very good data of all the children coming in. What we noticed is that from the lockdown period, we started getting a lot of boys coming in, and I'm talking of the age between 2 to, let's say, 8 years. coming in who were not talking. Now, traditionally, when boys are not talking by 2-3 years, we say, oh, send him to school and then he will talk. But when these kids started coming in, I realized that their basic problem was not speech. They just could not integrate with humans. So the first thing that strikes you is that they can't look at you in the face. And they don't want to be among people. So they get very anxious when they come to the consulting room, which is, unusual. You know, pediatricians, we give balloons and things to children, and the children like the balloons. But these kids will actually be afraid of the balloons we give. A 4-year-old running away from the balloon. And so it made us to start asking more questions. And that's when the parents themselves started telling us that, Dr. Blue, I think it's because my child is on screen. And then we started looking back at the other children and asking the parents. And then we noticed that it's actually the screen that is the problem. So my emphasis actually has been on children below 12. But I'm aware that the problem is a lot in the teenage years as well, as now a lot of people are coming up to see me with their children. But my emphasis has been the children, especially below 3 years of age, because we can reverse the effect if we intervene early.
So you're saying the main effect of this screen overexposure to screen time at a very early age is speech impairment and also social awkwardness or just lack of social skills. Can you elaborate on the second point?
So both communication skills and social skills are almost gone in this case. So they don't see themselves as human. So they don't even recognize their parents. They don't have a relationship with their parents. So if the mother can bring the child and leave the room and the child will just be there, will not even notice that the mother is gone. And they are in a world of their own. They are always on their own, maybe jumping around or playing on their own. They won't play with other children, and then they don't interact. And one of the main things they do for some of them is that they recite rhymes and alphabets on like a broken record. They'll just be going, the bars on the wheels on the bus go round and round, and they'll just sing it over and over and over again. You see, and then they're just A, B, C, D. They will just be reciting them. Without context, without any, they are just talking. And it doesn't, those are some of the...
So, but how did you, and again, you are a developmental pediatrician, so I can't challenge you, but I just want to know how you arrived at the conclusion that it was the exposure to the screen time and not other things, because we do know that kids at some ages also have certain impairments. So we have what they call cognitive autism and all these. So how did you arrive at the conclusion that it was the exposure to the screen time at that early age that led to these outcomes?
Yes. So actually, we all thought it was autism, but when I took time to go through how we diagnose autism, the symptoms of autism, these kids do not have all of that. Very clearly do not fulfill the criteria for autism. And I've seen some who have been told they have autism, but when we come and we go by the DSM-5, they don't meet their criteria. So it is talking with parents, because I meet these children regularly, very, very regularly, every 2 weeks, so we understand exactly what is wrong with the child. After spending hours and hours with the children and the parents, we notice that a particular cartoon is the culprit for all these children. So because the cartoon is very nice and it's full of songs, the parents leave the TV on the whole day. So apparently, as the TV is on, the child's ears are only glued to that particular frequency. So if they come to clinic and if you are talking to them, how are you, and they are not minding you, just start singing one of the songs of the cartoon, and the child will immediately come to you and start looking at your eyes and your face. Automatic. So it is.
Please, what is the name of this cartoon?
No, for ethical reasons, I can't. But I'm sure if you ask the parents now to tell you which cartoon it is, they will all respond. They will all tell you right away which cartoon they think is the cause of their children's problem. At the moment, we've seen so many children, so many parents, and the parents are ready to share their story and to warn other parents and to tell them what they are doing to get their kids back. So
at what age can this be salvaged? You said that a lot of these kids are maybe 0 to 12, right? at what age? Okay, so let me rephrase the question. Is this salvageable? I.e., is there something you can do to stop the addiction and also then to reverse the effect of the addiction?
Yes, when the children are really young, yes, because the brain is still developing, and we have a lot of parents whose children have been able to reverse, but it's how early you start the therapy. So we have therapies to help, but the main thing is that parents will need to take the initiative. The first thing is remove, even if you don't think it's the screen, remove the screen as a challenge. Remove the screen completely from the child, from your home. Move the tablet, the phone, the TV, put it off. And start talking to your child like a human being. Now, when we start teaching parents to talk to their children, we realize that many of these parents have never spoken to their children. So when we sit the child opposite the parent and say, talk to your child, all the mother is doing is give me 5, high five, high five. I'm not kidding you. The parents don't even know how to talk to their kids. And it's a problem because since birth, the child has just been on the screen. So what we do is to humanize the children. And that's the word I want all of us to put in mind. We need to humanize our children. Our children are not computers. They are human beings. And human beings need humans to behave like humans. Now, if you have a baby and you leave the baby with a monkey, the baby will begin to behave like a monkey because the children will pick up what they are used to. So if children live among humans and humans relate with them, they will begin to behave like humans. And that is where we start our therapy for, humanizing these children so that they will know that they are human beings and they must live among this is how human beings interact with each other.
Now I'm getting worried because a lot of listeners are mentioning the name of a certain cartoon, and that cartoon plays on my TV very regularly. So I don't know whether to just declare a ban on that. But on another note, the other problem I have is that as kids get to grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, the teachers do classes with them. So I was mentioning, for example, one of my boys is doing computing exam, and therefore the teachers do Zoom classes with them. All right, these are A11 and that kind of thing. How can we balance that? Because whilst we are trying to manage the situation at home based on what we are learning, some schools may also think that it's more effective to prepare the students when they are home with these Zoom classes. Is there a way in which we can manage that so it does not reverse progress we make at home?
Okay, so I must tell you that the good news is that many schools are removing the screens from their classrooms. Schools are taking off Google Classroom, and you can check around and see, because they are realizing it's not effective. Human beings need to learn from humans, and the screen should only be a support, not the main source of learning. So preschools are taking the screens out of their classrooms now as we are talking, and many primary schools are stopping using the Google Classroom and all as a routine way of teaching. It may be an add-on, but it is not the main in any good school. So you can ask around. The good schools are moving away from using the screen as the main way to teach. We need our children to interact with human beings, to learn how to socialize, and to learn how to fight fairly. How do you learn to fight if you don't meet human beings and know how people react? And we need that so that we can grow and children can grow, in a society where they interact with other human beings. If not, in a few years, we'll have the challenge that is happening in some other countries where children cannot tolerate the noise around them and they're picking guns and killing anybody who makes noise around them. You see, children need to have a normal life. Parents, take your children to the market. That has been our number one way of therapy. Take your children to market. Let your child walk around and feel how the Ghanaian vibe. Take your children to the festival, to the City FM. I forgot the name of it.
Back to your village food festival.
Yes. Take your children to these activities. These are the activities we promote in clinic. And our parents are taking their children back to their hometowns, to their villages to interact with other children. People are going back to Lima, to the Zongos to live there because they want their children to interact with humans. And the result is amazing. The kids are recovering.
So when the children want to go out and play football across the street, allow them to go. Let them learn how to fight. Don't put them in the house letting them watch television.
No, they are not chickens.
And playing video games.
They are human beings. Let them go out and play. Buy football. Go to the catalog. Buy football. Let your kids play football outside. And buy bicycles. This is what will save our children.
Dr. Brew, thank you. You said that some of the parents are prepared to share. So if you speak to some of them and they want to engage us, we'll be happy to talk to them later, not today, because I believe this is something we should advocate in a more systematic way for. So I want to thank you for speaking to us on short notice. And thank you. By the way, you can't advertise, but you do consult, so people can find you, right? So if people want to, where are you?
Well, no, I'm at a government hospital. I'm at Rich Hospital, so you can always bring your child in. So, having said that, I think I've been trying to chase you for more than a year.
You've been chasing me.
Yes, I've been sending you WhatsApp.
But I know Reverend Brew. He's never told me you are looking for me.
No, I sent you a WhatsApp. So just look at your WhatsApp, you will see me there. So we have training for healthcare workers.
Okay.
Training healthcare workers how to pick these children up before it becomes a problem. We train healthcare workers how to screen children from birth all the way to 5 years, because it's better you train the mother before the child gets addicted. And so our training program is coming on as usual, and we would want healthcare workers to register and come for the training. It's in a government facility, so it's not
where can they register?
At Rich Hospital. If you come to the pediatric neurodevelopmental clinic, or you call anyone at Rich that would like to register for the training program, you'll be registered. And the training is very important. We are doing it by the end of
Can you
June.
Train parents too, so that we can come for training?
Yeah, so I can't do everything. I've been trying to get other organizations to also get involved in training parents, training teachers, because preschool teachers need to pick these children up early. They shouldn't tell the parents that your child can talk. Children won't talk if they are not talking. We need to deal with the issue early. So we are trying to get other NGOs and groups involved, including the early childhood childhood unit in the Ghana Health Service and other social welfare, and also come in, because it's a national issue.
Now that you found me, I will put you on other platforms. Thank you for your work, Dr. Yvonne Brew.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
We thank God. A development pediatrician who is now training health workers on understanding overexposure to screen time and the effect of screen time on children between 0 and 12. She says that when you start exposing them between 0 and 4 to screen time, it can cause them to behave like non-human beings. It's very scary. Yeah. Non-responsive, can't talk well. You know, as I was doing the interview, I was thinking about my home and the kind of changes I have to install and the kind of drastic measures I have to keep. Because, Sky, you see, we are busy parents. So I get home and I'm stressed from work because maybe online has written some story and they have misrepresented somebody and the people are calling Stamens and they are stressing my life. And then I go home and then they say, oh, Daddy, can I have your phone? You know, and I'm like, oh, okay, you get it. So if you don't deliberately say that, bro, today no phone. So what I've tried to do is I've introduced what I call a phone day and a no phone day. So maybe I have to reduce the number of phone days to once a week, or screen day once a week. Problem, as I said, though, is that some of them now do some classes maybe once a week online. And sometimes they use that to do other things. So he's doing classes, but he's sitting in the veranda. You don't know. You know, he's doing classes. So, you know, so some way. So parents, I want listeners to tell me what we can do to deal with this matter. Because, I mean, the other thing I try to do is I let my kids play football and stuff like this. They go out and play to do external things. But you cannot go out all the time.
Yeah.
You know, so it's tough. It's tough. So, Charlie, and the thing that scared me after the thing she said. So are you going to ban it in your house? Let me take advice from you. Are you going to ban? What are we doing?
You know, because I know
this one is about us.
Yeah,
we are discussing what to do. Because, you know, myself and Sky, our kids are almost around the same ages.
Yeah.
And they know each other.
No, I'm interested in this conversation also because I enjoy spending time with my nephews. But I also noticed...
How old are they?
Oh, these are 5 and below.
My brother.
So and the boys in particular, they can be very exhausting.
My God.
By the time I get home, I wonder how my brothers and sisters are doing it, because it's really exhausting.
They have endless energy.
Too much energy.
And so what the parent wants to do is to give them the device so they can have some peace. But that is becoming a problem.
Yes.
So maybe we should get a football for them and say, go and play.
Here's what I want you to do. When you go home, I don't know whether you have Netflix. You should look for the movie Megan.
And watch it with them or
Yeah,
alone?
No, you should watch it with them. Now, it tells the story of, so in that particular that movie, the child was already addicted to a particular cartoon and device, right? And in the course of that, it led to a car accident that took the life of the mother and the father.
Oh,
Now she had to now move and live with the auntie. The auntie is within the tech space. She was designing these cartoons and then also robots for purposes of helping children to play with things like that. Because the lady also needed time to be able to finish a project.
She didn't have time for the boy.
She didn't have a time for the lady. Then she said, "Oh, you
For
go
the
and
girl.
play with it. Go and play." In the process, the robot that was actually created became paired with the young girl,
Hey!
and it became a whole problem.
My God.
And eventually, it nearly endangered the entire family.
Hey!
The point I'm trying to make is that technology has its own place in the economic development of our society, right? And then also in our social development. It has its own place. But it has to be used in a targeted and a measured way.
Correct.
If it is deployed at the wrong time without supervision, it creates its own problems.
Yeah.
Because kids being kids always want to go behind the scenes and look for things they think that they identify with.
True.
In the process, it creates a lifelong problem. Now, if you don't have a delicate balance as to ensure that, okay, there is introduction in a targeted way, and then there is also control, or the guardrails are in place to ensure that, look, there is limited exposure.
Correct.
Then the kind of problems that the doctor was talking about will be there, because these are some of the things you read in the international journals about what's happening and the calls on, international governments to deal with this particular problem.
Yeah.
For some reason, we are not picking it up.
All right, we'll read some comments on this shortly. But I wanted Caleb to read a few of the comments
Sure.
on this addiction to gadgets. And I'm worried. I mean, the way Dr. Bruce spoke today, by the way, if you are a nurse or doctor or somebody, she's organizing early childhood developmental screening and autism workshop
Okay.
between 25th to 27 June, and it's 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily. It's only 300 cedis, so you can even sponsor people to go. And it's a 3-day event. Day 3 is for pediatricians only, but day 1 and 2 are for other health professionals.
Okay.
You may call 0202 265 695 to register. Let me call the number again. 0202 265 695. She's doing this at the Child Health Reception of the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, which is Ridge Hospital. So it's a very simple thing.
Right.
I actually feel even non-health professionals can attend.
Sunday school teachers also, and then people who do a lot of,
Yeah.
who handle kids, nannies
Yeah.
and all that can
Yeah.
also be part
Read a
of
few
this
comments
as
for
well.
me. I'd like to
Yes.
speak to a teacher on this matter as well.
Right. So, good morning, Bernard and panel members. The concern Sky raised in relation to online mode of teaching students in the universities is a big problem. Okay, we've done this. Thank you, Godwin. Good morning, City Team. I agree completely with Sky. I think the schools can do and must do something about this situation. It is mostly the distance students. That program needs to be relooked at. They use limited time to cover volumes of courses. Tafabam Davids from Kibi Sender through Bernardino. This matter of online staff has become so rampant in our universities. My younger brother is a student at you name the school, and they are almost always online. Meanwhile, he's a regular student, and I always ask myself, why did I even enroll him as a regular student while the school is always online? And the challenge is that the school you're mentioning is a technical university, and they're always online. So where is the transmission of skills and knowledge and attitudes in particular? Bernard, in addition to all that the pediatrician has said, there is also a high risk of developing myopia or short-sightedness. There is currently a myopia epidemic in Asia with 90% of children suffering same.
they are
I am
destroying-
an optometrist.
Yeah,
You
let me
said.
read a comment from a lecturer, and then I'll speak to Angel Kabonu. Sky has a case, but he shouldn't generalize. We also have a blended approach for some of our postgraduate programs.
Okay.
This is a lecturer at the University of Ghana. My online classes are as effective as the in-person, even though I prefer the face-to-face encounter. All my students will tell you you need to be in a decent environment to participate in class because my video is always on and the students as well at all times. Lectures are recorded so that students with internet challenges don't miss anything after the class. I agree with him 100% that there should be a policy to guide online teaching because students just log in and will be doing all manner of things even at the postgraduate level if not checked. But if you ask me, I'll always go for in-person and not online. So this is a lecturer speaking. Now let's talk to Angel Kabonu, who is from the National Association of Graduate Teachers. Angel, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I'm with the National Association of Graduate Teachers, but I've sent my application for employment at CT because I'm ending my presidency in December and I want job at CT.
But your presidency is not your job. That's your job is a teacher. So how does your presidency make you unemployed, Angel?
Yeah, Bernard.
Yes.
A few months ago, some mathematics teachers were posted to a secondary school in Accra. I don't want to mention the name. So the headmistress decided to ask the head of department to conduct a test for the teachers who have been posted to the school. The teachers have been sent to teach mathematics. So they were given the Form 2 examination paper to write. Bernard, some of the people got below 28%. Apparently, they had done sandwich courses. They've also done these online courses. And they were not able to practically meet the standards of a Form 2 second term examination paper.
Wait, are these maths teachers or other teachers?
These are mathematics. They were sent to come and teach math.
And they couldn't answer Form 2 second term maths papers?
They could not. So the headmistress of the school decided that she will not be able to take them in the school. I just don't want to mention this. This happened just a few months ago.
Hey, so why are you giving me this example?
I'm giving you this example to collaborate with what Richard Sky said, that we need to really look at the way online programs are being conducted. However, if we want to assess students with online programs with the same way we assess students face-to-face, it will not work. The type of question, the nature of the questions, the expectations of the outcome, the practicality of the inquisitions in the questions will have to change so as to be able to get whether the students have imbibed the information and knowledge that they have been given. A blend will be very, very useful where there is a commensurate number of in-person interaction with the online program that we are having. But Bernard, the problem again is the number of students are increasing and growing. And the sought-out institutions are not able to cope with the numbers. So one solution is the online program. If you don't do the online program in Ghana, the students will access online outside. That is where we need to. If you look, we are losing tons and tons of money here because a lot of our students are doing online programs outside and they are paying $3,600 and all that to outside university.
So let me ask you, as a secondary school teacher, at what age do you think children should be exposed to digital learning, the so-called edtech? What's a reasonable way of introducing youngsters to edtech so it doesn't damage their ability to learn?
Introducing should be at early age. By relying it as a means of teaching and learning should be at the degree stage. The earlier you introduce children to tech, their ability to understand, manipulate so that they don't get scared and so on and so forth, should be at an early age. But it should not be the means of teaching and learning. It should not be the means of instruction. So these children are not supposed to rely on it as a way of getting themselves educated. However, when people grow and they can understand concepts, then maybe the blend will have to come in and make sure that at that time they have formed their social relationships already, they have established their cultural links already, so they are no longer going to rely on technology. For me, like this, I will use technology to enhance the social relationships that I've established all through my life. But if you let the children rely on it earlier, now that will be the means of establishing relations. And I'm going to give you an example, Bernard. When we were young, we were writing letters to our girlfriends. And the letters were so personal. I don't know whether you also did that, but in my time, you know, the goodness of the day have given me this opportunity to write you this lovely letter, blah, 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 blah. So there was a personal relationship between us and our friends. These days, people think they have established relationship, and it is like, hi, what's up? Oh, I'll see you ASAP. And they think that they are having they are not having personal relationships. They are rather relating with the gadgets that they are using. So look at relationships these days among the younger folks. The personal touch is not there. The personal attachment is not there. So that is the problem. And then, of course, one thing I want to say is that we Ghanaians and some Africans, ours is Siantra. We learn a little from the white man and we overdo things to our peril.
So having said this, I'm not aware if there's an edtech policy in Ghana. Is this the time to start engaging on what the policy should contain and what restrictions we should place so that we do not siatra, as you said? Because I believe, look, we have a show here we call EdTech Monday. We do it once a month where we talk about the need for technology to bridge the gap in learning. And I've discussed this with many professionals, and they talk about why EdTech is important, because in some communities the class sizes are large, they have access to information, it's not there. So EdTech is promoted as a positive. But now we are being told that overexposure can be harmful, which means we need a policy framework. And you are an experienced teacher, so maybe talk to me about that and what are some of the things the policy should contain?
Absolutely a good program you have there, because the reality of the modern world is technology. And we cannot allow ourselves to be left behind. Technology is good, but technology has to be measured. Technology is good, technology has to be applied reasonably. So, yes, a policy is absolutely necessary, but I plead that before, you know the way policies are enacted in this country, so I plead that before a policy, there should be engagement. And this program you're having this morning is very useful because it is widening people's scope on the matter and the fact that ideas will come, and it is these ideas that will have to make up the policy. You see, ICT is a tool. It's a means to an end. It's a conveyor belt. It is not life in itself. So how do we use technology to enhance humanity? The spirit of humanity must be in there. How do we use technology to enhance the wherewithal of humanity, to push us forward so as we become more humans than we are now? That should be the underlying theme of any such policy that will come. Time was when people thought that technology was going to replace the teacher in the classroom, and that with AI, children may not need to have the teacher. But the teacher is important. The teachers in the schools are important. Their body language, their behavior, their mannerism, their interaction with the children, making the children see another scope of life and all that. It is not the 1+1. It is how to build a human being from the classroom that is most important. So I think that this morning you were touched by a certain spirit to introduce this topic, Thank you, Richard Sky. Thank you, Bernard.
All right.
And all that.
Final question, Angel. I remember many years ago I asked you when we were debating whether students can use mobile phones, and your view was that, Charlie, that you don't think it was necessary at the time. Now I've heard schools where there are so many students and so few teachers, and with the free teachers and these problems, I know a lot of parents would appreciate a means of reaching their students, particularly in the boarding house. So I'm talking secondary schools now.
Yeah.
What is your position? So would you say now that we can allow at least YAM phones in the secondary school so that the kids can contact their parents, or your position that secondary school, no phone? Is this still the position?
No, it is not the position. In fact, it's a controversial issue amongst us. Tomorrow I have a council meeting. It's one of the topics we are going to look at. The issue is this: the management of it. Do you know that in the United States, I did a program in the United States a few years ago where there is now this academic law in the US that every lecturer in a university will have to upload his or her lesson notes on a site called Blackboard. I don't know whether you are aware of this. So that the students in Purdue University can access the notes of a lecturer in, let's say, George Mason University in Virginia, and so on and so forth. You have a situation where technology can make the student in government who is studying government as a subject get the notes of the teacher at Prempeh, who is also teaching government, and so on and so forth. The fear is that when that technology is not managed properly, because the students will have the tools in the school, they'll be using the tools in the school for other things other than the purpose for which it was meant for. I mean, pornographic sites are common these days. Other sites are common these days. They can even... So I think that it is the managers. My position is shifting. I don't think it is also absolutely right to deny our students the possession of phones in the school, because, Bernard, they have the phones in the schools anyway. When you go to Presec right now, over 98% of students in Presec have their own mobile phone.
Hey.
Oh, yes.
Are you serious?
In St. Mary's, students cut the Bible and place the phone in the Bible. So when you see them, they were holding the Bible. That space, until you open the Bible, you will see that they've cut a square inside the Bible, the pages, and then they place the phone. So the former headmistress, Mrs. Grace Shen, called me and said, Mr. Kabonu, come and have a look at what your students are doing. So they have the phones anyway. The problem is, because it is against the rules, we are not able to manage its usage. So we also need to sit down and really look at that policy. Because, Bernard, the students have the phones in the school.
All right. I just wanted to say that until I speak to Presec PTA, I will not take the allegation that 98%, because I am quite close to the school. And I disagree with you when you say that 98%, because I go to Presec fairly regularly. Maybe I'm not in the boarding house. So you can say a good number of Presec students have mobile phones. But I cannot sit on public radio and allow you to slander my school in such terrible terms. So you know St. Mary's, but for Presec, no, I disagree with you.
Okay, let me recalibrate my statement by saying that I believe a large number of students in Presec have mobile phones.
That I can take. I thank you. I believe that this conversation will trigger a proper discourse on a policy around this, and hopefully we can engage you as well. So thank you, Angel Kabonu, for talking to us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bernard.
So how did this topic come? Before we came on air, Richard Sky said he just wanted to say something. So I think the cocoa he went to buy, and the person who put sugar in his cocoa when he wasn't supposed to put, claiming she was studying economics on a phone in the cocoa shop. So is this the economics we learned and struggled at Gimpa? That now you are sitting in a cocoa shop that you are learning economics on a mobile phone that has a cracked screen. That's what brought the issue. But you know, God has a way of working. It now even led to the children one.
Yeah,
And I can tell you that most parents, the mobile phone is a convenient babysitter.
Yeah.
So it's tough. And you cannot outsource parenting to a phone.
True.
So we have to think. And from the way I'm hearing, in advanced countries now, kids are having eye problems, social problems, all because of the use of technology. True. And as Angel said, in Ghana, when somebody teaches us something, overdo it. We don't apply the brakes. So I want to really urge parents to share their experience on how to manage devices at home.
Right.
And also, schools should tell us how they are
confronting the issue.
Yes, how and I'm talking about universities, how they are balancing the convenience of online learning with the need for practical. And I'll tell you this, in my economics class, it was when I got to my final year that I enjoyed the course because we're smaller, and the teachers were teaching us like maybe 30 people. When you take your electives, and they can go through explanations, they will invite you to the board to draw the curve, and when you do that, you get confident. But if I was learning economics the way they are learning it today, it will be some way, because you just sit on the thing, look at the slides, you save the slides, but you won't get that. So we have to balance it. Let's read a few more comments.
So Caleb Fuga from Dex Technology, right? Dex Technology. He says there's a difference between screen technology and ed tech. Not all ed techs require screens. For instance, our ed tech solution provides simple tools that help to bring education to life. For instance, building the human digestive system, building the thermometer are some of the activities the science set offers. This is not a screen technology, but education technology. So putting it in context,
I agree with him.
Yeah,
the use of edtech is broad, but generally it tends to move towards screens, which is why I feel like they use that. Sure. Let's read more.
So more comments. Right. So Bernard, what the lady said about the online teaching is very true. In fact, there was a time a lecturer told us not to record her lesson because it's her intellectual property, and that if you do that on her blind side and she gets to know, she will sue you. Because of this, if you miss her lectures, you can't have a recap of whatever she thought. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to chime in and support what Sky is saying. From my personal experience pursuing a master's program in the US, I found that accessing lectures requires a laptop or a desktop computer. Unfortunately, phones aren't compatible. I just wanted to add my 2 cents and confirm what Sky mentioned. Send that through. Bernard, people must know that parenthood is a wild ride. Yes, 1 minute you are watching your kid master the art of making a mess, and then the next you are questioning your life choices. But amidst all the chaos, let's not forget that screens aren't babysitters. They might give us a breather, but at what cost? Our kids need our presence, not just our Wi-Fi connection. Let's make time for the things that matter, even the boring bits. Our parents did it for us. Let's make time to watch them jump around and kick the ball the wrong way. It's what we signed up for. Stephen from Manette with a parenting manual. Good morning, Bernard and team.
There's a very funny message I got here from Philip Ashon.
Okay.
He says, Aloski,
yes.
What about the parents who themselves are addicted to the screen? It's an issue of regulation, not a complete ban. If the parents are addicted to the screen, how can he manage his own child?
Because they are driving, they're on the phone. They are cooking, they're on the phone. They even take the phone to the bathroom.
TikTok.
I've actually, I used to charge my phone across my room.
Right.
For the simple reason, now when the alarm blows, I'll wake up and go and pick it. But when the phone is next to me, I just wait on snooze. But I think that when the phone is near me too, I'm tempted to be going through it before I sleep. So I'm going to revert to sending the phone to Zongo.
That's
across,
a good one. I'll adopt it.
Send it across the room so that when it calls, you have to wake up and
you
walk.
have to get up and go to
Yes, so that's a good one.
That's
a few more
one.
comments. Somebody sent me something I thought I would read briefly. And thank you, listeners, for helping me with this. So this is from a pediatric organization. Early childhood tablet use an outburst of anger. Caroline Fitzpatrick, PhD. Pedro Mariopan, PhD. Annie Lemieux, MSc. Elizabeth Harvey, PhD. Fabricio de Andrade Rocha, PhD. And Gabriel Garon Carria, PhD. So 7 doctors and a half.
That's right.
It says tablet use continues to increase in preschool age children. The use of mobile devices has been linked to child emotional dysregulation. However, few studies have been able to show a clear direction of association between child tablet use and the development of self-regulation skills. In addition, few studies have modeled within-person associations over time. Then objective. So the objective of this study, to estimate how child tablet use contributes to expressions of anger and frustration across ages 3 to 5 to 5.5 years at the within-person level. The study team also examined the extent to which associations are bidirectional to clarify the direction of the correlations, design, setting, and participants. This prospective community-based convenience sample of 315 parents of preschool aged from Nova Scotia, Canada. So that's your hometown.
Nova Scotia,
Canada. Yeah. Was studied repeatedly at the ages of 3.5. So they were aged 3.5 in 2020 and 4.5 age 2020. Or born, okay, so 3.5 means they were born in 2020 and 4.5 2021 and 5.5 2022 during the COVID pandemic. All analyses were conducted between October 5, 2023 and December 15, 2023. Exposure. Parent reported tablet usage at the ages 3.5, 4.5, and 5.5. Main outcome and measurement. Parents reported child expressions of anger and frustration at the ages of 3.5, 4.5, and 5.5 years using the children's behavior questionnaire. Results. The sample was equally distributed across the child sex. 171 were identified by parents as being born boys and 144 as girls. Most reported being Canadian and married. So these are the parents. A random intercept cross-lagged panel model revealed that a 1 SD increase in tablet use at age 3.5, corresponding to 1.15 hours per day, was associated with a 22% SD skill increase in anger. Let me read this again. A random intercept lagged panel model revealed that a 1 SD increase in tablet use at age 3.5, which is about 1 hour, 1.15. So that's 1/15 of an hour. So maybe 70 minutes per day, was associated with a 22% SD skill increase in anger and frustration at age 4.5 years. Standardized coefficient of 0.22, 95% confidence interval. A 1 SD skill increase in anger and frustration at 4.5 years was associated with a 22% increase corresponding to 0.28 hours a day increase in tablet usage at 5.5 years. Conclusions and relevance. In this study, child tablet usage at age 3.5 was associated with more expressions of anger and frustration by the age of 4.5. Child proneness to anger and frustration at age 4.5 was then associated with more use of tablets by age 5.5. So two things. When the child uses the tablet age 3.5 and 4.5, they get more angry. And when they use the tablet age 3.5 and 4.5, they are more likely to use it when they are also 5. So it's like they are getting to use it more. These results suggest that early childhood tablet use may contribute to a cycle that is deleterious for emotional regulation. Now let me read the thing properly. So the SD is standard deviation. You know, I left school chair, so I forget some of these things. So I think the conclusion is clear. Based on what pediatrician has told us in this research, which is 2023 research, it says that early childhood tablet use may contribute to a cycle that is deleterious or harmful for emotional regulation. So kids cannot control their anger because they are overexposed to tablet usage at a very early age. So I think the evidence is clear. And what we need to do is to think carefully about the implications of this and come up with a solution.